It's time for an inside look at what's cooking on the San Diego Padres hot stove as the team gets ready for the 2025 season.
Swing and a miss. Padres win.
Sam Levitt breaks down the Padres offseason moves and provides an in-depth look at everything you need to know before the Padres take the field for spring training.
Swinging a high fly ball. Deep left center. This one way back and gone.
Plus the latest headlines from around Major League Baseball and analysis of what's happening around the big leagues.
Breaking news out of baseball.
Welcome to Inside San Diego Baseball with the Padres Radio Network's pre- and post-game host, Sam Levitt.
We are live on a Wednesday night from Peoria, Arizona. It's Inside San Diego Baseball. Sam Levitt with you from Padres Spring Training, live from the famous Airbnb here in Glendale, Arizona. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday night as we talk all things Padres baseball and beyond on what was a very normal sort of run-of-the-mill first day of pitchers and catchers reporting. Well, this evening, things get far more interesting with the Padres reportedly signing veteran right-hander Nick Pivetta to a 4-year, $55 million contract, according to ESPN's Jeff Passan. It includes a pair of opt-outs pending a physical. So, again, team has not officially announced this deal. This report coming down from Jeff Passan of ESPN. Jeff Passan then following up another tweet. Nick Pivetta's deal with the Padres says opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. The deal will pay him a $3 million signing bonus, a $1 million salary in 2025, $19 million in 2026, $14 million in 2027, $18 million in 2028. So obviously very, very significant news, very interesting news, especially when you take a look at the accounting and take a look at how the Padres will pay Nick Pivetta. But we do know that Pivetta will be a Padre not just this year, but 2026 as well. Again, Jeff Passan reporting that there are opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. So we will get into all the different elements, aspects, things you have to analyze from a signing like this, and we'll get you involved as the program rolls along as well. Phone number to call, 833-288-0973. So we'll get you involved as the program rolls along. We'll also recap some of what went on at spring training today. A lot of interesting stuff. Again, a lot of what we were planning to hear from Mike Schilt, Matt Waldron, also Elias Diaz, who I heard from earlier today. We'll get to that probably coming up a little bit later in the show, because obviously this Nick Pivetta news, very, very significant. And, you know, looking at this, and we'll let Frank chime in. He's producing back in San Diego tonight. A number of different elements that I think you consider when you look at this Nick Pivetta deal. Number one, I mean, this is really, I think, kind of shocking in a way. You know, the Padres, you got the feeling heading into spring training, you got the feeling really all offseason that, you know, there was not going to be a big-time deal, right? You got the feeling that, you know, there wasn't going to be this major signing. There wasn't going to be, you know, a big-time contract handed out. And all of a sudden, you look at it, a 4-year, $55 million deal and an AAV of $13+ million. So right there, it's just a really interesting move. You know, look, he is somebody that if you look at his traditional numbers, it's not going to blow you away per se. But I do think there's reason for promise with Nick Pivetta. Let's get into some of what's already been written about it. And this was from AJ Cassavell of MLB.com a little bit earlier. Pivetta, a reliably solid starter for the Red Sox from 2021 through 2024. 156 innings per season with a 4.33 ERA, 27% strikeout rate. The right-hander even better from 2023 to 2024, running a 4.09 ERA, 30% strikeout rate, fifth best among pitchers with at least 250 innings. And Frank, I'll throw it to you for a second because I know you weren't a big fan when the news came down, but I do think there is there's reason to believe that he could be better moving forward. I want you to chime in, and then we'll get to the other aspects of this deal.
Like I said in the last hour, it is a fantastic, perfect A-plus signing by A.J. Preller for 2025. My only concern is he is a guy who has never had more than 10 wins in a season. He has never in his career had an ERA below 4. You just gave that guy $19 million next year. That's my only concern. And I don't see the line of work that would garner $19 million next year. But this year, it doesn't get any better than what you just signed Nick Pivetta for, period.
Yeah, look, the reason I like it is, look, for this year, I think it's a slam dunk. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a slam dunk. Again, the creative accounting, a $3 million signing bonus, $1 million salary. I mean, that's great. And look, if you can get middle of the rotation type production from Nick Pivetta for that's fantastic. Now, I want to read a little bit more here from MLB.com. Part of Pivetta's spike in strikeouts his last 2 seasons stemmed from excellent results on his curveball and a new sweeper he introduced in 2023. Throwing those pitches 36% of the time in the last 2 years, opposing hitters whiffed on 31% of swings. That is 627 OPS against Pivetta. He upped the usage of his sweeper to 25%, so he's pitching a little bit differently. Look, you can look at Baseball Reference, and I'm sure many of you did right after this. Look, you're going to see a lot of ERAs above 4. It's not, ace-type numbers. There's no way around it. But I will say this, Frank. When you look at what a middle-of-the-rotation arm has commanded this offseason, I think a $13+ million AAV, you could argue it might be a little bit of an overpay, but I don't know that it's a crazy overpay based on what some of these other guys have got. Look, if he comes here and he does really, really well, again, he has the opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. So, look, I think the hope is, in all likelihood, he pitches really well. You pay him a lot next year, and then he takes the opt-out and he's back in free agency. Now, of course, it's a great deal for Nick Pivetta because he's guaranteed himself $55 million. So, look, I think at a surface level, I like it because, the Padres, as of this morning when I walked in that clubhouse, they had 2 very open rotation spots that were a wide-open competition with Matt Waldron and Randy Vasquez. And look, I'm high on Matt Waldron. I'm pretty high on Randy Vasquez. Bottom line is, we know those are 2 major question marks in their rotation. And I just feel like even though Nick Pivetta hasn't always been great, there's clearly, and we'll get more into the Baseball Savant page and some of the other things, and I sent you a link from ESPN's Paul Hembekides. He had an interesting take on Pivetta before he even got signed. I just think there's reason for promise, and at the very least, you've now filled the spot for this year with somebody who at least has a bit of a track record. Again, he's been a middle-of-the-rotation, kind of guy. The numbers as far as ERA aren't going to blow you away. But, look, when you have 2 wide-open rotation spots, I'm okay with a little bit of an overpay to get a veteran-type arm in here. I am. And, again, for this year, it works really, really well. And there is reason for promise, and we'll get more into that. Now, the really interesting part of this whole thing goes back to just the premise of this for the Padres, right? This is really surprising because I, like many of you out there, I did not see a scenario where the Padres were going to hand out an AAV of $13+ million at this point of the offseason based on what we had thought we knew about the payroll number, about the financial limitations. So, look, it is surprising in and of itself that the Padres went out and signed Nick Pivetta. But now they are firmly above the luxury tax number, above the luxury tax threshold. So either it's one of two things. Either the Padres are going to be above that luxury tax threshold, and hey, if they are, I applaud the Padres. That's great if you're a Padres fan. You want them to spend money, as much money as they can. You want financial flexibility. Those are all really great things. But I do think now you start to wonder, okay, is there another move on the horizon? If, and it was reported earlier this offseason that they were trying to stay below that luxury tax threshold, is there another move coming? Because based on the numbers, and I haven't crunched every cent, okay, as we came on here, but you would have to move somebody or somebodies to get under now if your AAV for Pivetta is $13+ million. So, look, I think on the surface, I like it because the Padres have a need there. In the back end of the rotation, they have a need. Okay, you can think it's an overpay. You can think the numbers in years 2, 3, and 4 are a little high. That's fine, but they have a need. And they have two needs in that rotation right now. And, I'm okay with going and getting an arm and getting a veteran arm that maybe, and I'm sure they do, has some more upside than maybe the numbers would show. But it's very interesting now to think about, and we'll see what happens over the course of the next handful of weeks to see if there's a corresponding move, because this would put them firmly, in my mind, unless I'm mathing wrong here, this would put them firmly above that first luxury tax threshold. So, look, if you're telling me this rotation is going to be Darvish, King, Cease, Pivetta, and a Matt Waldron, Randy Vasquez to start the year, I think that's really solid. You'll roll with that. But it does beg the question of, is there another move coming? I don't know the answer to that, but it does remain a fascinating part of this, and I do wonder if they're done. Because let's be honest, this has sort of come out of left field. It really has. I expected the Padres to do something. I don't know that I expected to get news tonight that they had handed out a 4-year, $55 million deal. I did not see that coming.
And I want to correct something that I said last hour on the Scraby Show. I said that it was not going to cost them a pick. It will.
It will
cost them a draft
second round pick for next year.
Yeah, because
Pivetta. Is that? Hold on, I bookmarked it.
Because Pivetta declined a qualifying offer, so because the qualifying offer was attached to him, the Padres lose a pick.
Yeah, the Padres will forfeit their second highest draft pick in this year's draft. So that would be the number 77 overall pick. So, look, there's a cost to that. Now, look, I think a lot of teams don't get, too crazy about losing the draft pick. If you think it's worth it to sign a guy, I'm fine with it. But, again, it's just part of, I think, the surprising part about this, and people wondering, I just see in the chat right now, why they need to give up a pick. It's because Pivetta was given the qualifying offer by the Red Sox. So then when you sign him, you get the Red Sox get that pick. It's just interesting. I did not expect it. I like it from a baseball standpoint. I do. But it does now beg the question of, is there another move coming? What is the payroll going to be? And maybe the answer to that is that it's going to be higher than what was reported in these months prior. I don't know the answer to that. But on the surface, and we'll get more into Pivetta, and we'll take your calls coming up as well. I like it, Frank, from a baseball sense. I get it. You might look at it like a little bit of an overpay, but starting pitching is expensive. I mean, we can go through some of these guys, and it's hard to find an exact comp, but starting pitching is expensive. And if you think Pivetta has upside and he's a veteran presence, remember as well, this is a part of it that we really haven't got to. Yes, those numbers will go up for 2026, 27, 28, if he gets there on the contract. Padres are going to have a lot of money coming off the books, okay? Eric Hosmer's money's coming off the books. Right now, you've got a ton of guys in a walk year. We know the names. King, Cease, Arise. Are those three guys coming back? Probably not all of them, right? So, if any of them. So, look, there's a lot of money coming off the books, and I think that's probably part of this, to get through the financial part of it for this year. And then you'll pay him more in the years to come. But again, from the luxury tax standpoint, the AAV is $13+ million per year. So that part of it is very interesting. It really is, and we'll see. There's, it's funny. Never a dull moment with the Padres. You think they're rolling into spring training. You think things are kind of set. Maybe they'll just roll with what they got. Bam. AJ Preller, who was there today on the phone, who knows what he was talking about, who was talking to. I wasn't eavesdropping. Makes a big move. Maybe he was finalizing the deal with Pavetta's agent.
At this point, it's you're in for a penny, you're in for a dollar at this point. If you're already over it, so you may as well just go for it now. If you were trying to stay under it, the only thing that I could possibly think of is that baseball confirmed Padre ownership, so now they know where the money's coming from. That opens it up. That's just my thought. That's a theory I have. But,
yeah.
I mean, at this point, you're in for a penny, in for a dollar. You may as well blow it. You may as well go for it now.
Look, again, I'm not going to pretend to know if that's played a role, the fact that Major League Baseball approved John Seidler as control person, if that has now had an impact on the Padres' payroll and what they can do. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that all of a sudden their payroll is a lot higher. So, and the luxury tax part of it. So either they're foot on the gas pedal and this payroll is going to be a lot higher than what a lot of people anticipated, or there's a move. And I don't know the answer to which part of that's going to be. All right, let's step aside. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about Nick Pivetta. I want to get to the Paul Hembekides audio as well. We'll do that. And your phone calls coming up as well. Inside San Diego Baseball, more after this. Back here on Inside San Diego Baseball on this Wednesday night. It is 7:20 p.m. in San Diego. Sam Levitt with you from Peoria, Arizona. Live at Padres spring training. Well, not at the spring training complex right now. Inside the Airbnb here in Glendale. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the Airbnb behind me. I said this earlier on Ben and Woods. Same house I was in a year ago, different side, different unit. So it's very nice, little smaller, but still pretty nice. And I would say maybe even a little bit fancier than what I had last year. So a lot of good stuff here. Phone number to call, 833-288-0973. As we continue to react to this Nick Pivetta reported signing, according to Jeff Passan of ESPN. Speaking of ESPN, let's Frank back in the studio. Frank, let's play what Paul Hembekides of ESPN had to say about Pivetta earlier today.
Nick Pivetta is the best value on the board among remaining free agents, Buster. He returned as a full-time starter last year and intrigues me a lot on a 2 or 3 year deal. You might ask why a pitcher with a ERA north of 4 would intrigue me so much, so I wrote down a few numbers. He ranked last year among those to start 20 games in the 83rd percentile in base runner avoidance, the 84th percentile in walk avoidance, and the 92nd percentile in strikeout rate. So those are some positive underlying numbers. It is also a four-seam fastball that ranked at the very top of the league in active spin, 97%. But he only threw it 49% of the time. That was a career low. As you well know, that didn't exactly jive with the Red Sox pitching philosophy. I think that pitch will flourish more somewhere else. And the last thing I wrote down, Buster, is we can get him to improve against righties. We can get him to improve with a platoon advantage. Lefties last year had a 610 OPS against him. Righties had an 814 OPS against him. A 204-point reverse OPS split. Very bizarre. He allowed 17 homers to righties. 10 of those were on a fairly sloppy sweeper that he threw an awful lot. We're going to either get rid of that pitch or we're going to reduce it. After peeling the onion back a couple layers, Buster, I'm awfully intrigued about Nick Pivetta's free agency.
Yeah, and I think probably the reason why he's still sitting out there is because the Red Sox gave him a qualifying offer. He's tied to draft pick compensation, and along those lines, to me, he would be a great fit for the New York Mets. So I think Jeremy Hefner, their pitching coach, is excellent with working with guys. David Stearns, his history with the Brewers, excellent. They've already given up. They've already signed Juan Soto, right? This is when you double dip on free agents and the potential when you don't have to, because there are teams shying away from Nick Pivetta because of the free agent of the draft pick compensation.
So what was really interesting about that, and that was from ESPN, you heard Buster Olney there along with Paul Hembekides. Should have said you were going to hear from Buster as well. But the interesting part about that, number one, Frank, ironically, they were talking about the Mets being a good fit for Pivetta, but the hang-up they felt was that the draft pick could discourage teams from trying to sign Pivetta. And again, we said it earlier, Frank, the Padres said, to heck with it, we want him anyway.
Yeah, no, as they should have. I mean, it's by the way, for those of you in the chat who were mad at me for being a Met fan commenting on Padre stuff, I had no clue that Met comment was coming from Buster Olney there. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to bite that bullet, and that's a bullet that for this year especially that AJ Preller was willing to bite, and if it helps the team, then it was 110% worth it. 110%
yeah,
worth
no,
it.
Look, I like it. Look, just look, we can get into every aspect of this if this is an overpay, if it is really a move predicated on this year. But with that said, what I love about it, bar none, is that it's a go-for-it move. It's an aggressive move, and I like that. Let's go to the phones. 833-288-0973. Let's go to Juan, calling in from Vista. Juan, you're on the air. Go ahead.
How's it going, Sam? I hope you're having a great night.
Yep.
I'm just calling because I guess my initial thoughts on Nick Pivetta are that it seems like a really great pickup in terms of how he does against lefties. There is a video kind of circulating around Twitter where he strikes out Shohei at least 3 times. And, I mean, there seems to be a stipulation in the contract where I guess is only getting paid $1 million with a $3 million signing bonus. I'm not sure if that's entirely correct or if you have any more information on that. I'm not entirely sure what the actual numbers are.
Yeah, we said it a little bit earlier, and again, this was from Jeff Passan a little bit earlier. But yeah, $3 million signing bonus, and then a $1 million salary for this year.
Okay.
All right.
Well, then,
yeah, go ahead, Juan.
Okay. Well, I mean, does that mean that we trade Cease or, well, probably not King, but does that mean that we trade Cease and try to bring in a left-hander? Because with that, we would have a five-man rotation with right-handers.
Yeah, look, I don't know how concerned they are or not about being righty heavy. I mean, you look at the options for the 5th spot right now. It's Waldron, Vasquez, Brito, Kolek. Like, they're going to be righty heavy unless they go get somebody else. So we'll see. Let's continue on the phones. Kathy in L.A. Hi, Kathy.
Hey, Sammy. I got 2 things I want to ask. First thing is, since we're supposedly already over the luxury tax, how much more do we have till we get to the second level of luxury tax? And the other thing was, is Steven Wilson still out there and available? Because didn't he just get cut by the White Sox?
Yeah, Wilson, he did get DFA'd. I would love to get Steven Wilson back. He was effective. He's a good guy as well. To give you an idea, Kathy, of the thresholds, 2025, the first one is 241. So, I don't know. I got to see. I'm not sure on the math how far they are from the second threshold. But we'll try to do the math a little bit later during the break. Let's go to Jake in Lakeside. Hi, Jake.
Hey, Sammy. How's it going?
Hey.
So what Juan was going about the 5 righties, I called in Gwen and Chris yesterday and mentioned that and maybe thought about, like, getting an Andrew Haney or something like that. But, I mean, overall, can Padre fans really be mad? They asked for another pitcher. You got a pretty decent pitcher, it seems like, and you filled that gap. So overall, as a Padres fan, you can't be mad. They did what the fan base is asking for. Seems like they got a pretty good right-hander. We'll see how it shakes out, and hopefully we don't give up Cease or King. But, if we trade a Suarez, wouldn't it be too upset about it because we have the depth in the bullpen to replace a guy like that and maybe get, I don't know, maybe a big leaguer or some prospects to tighten up the farm system.
Yeah, look, we said it a little bit earlier, Jake. That's going to be the main question now. Is there another move looming? Right, from a payroll standpoint, are they going to sit above the luxury tax, or are they going to make a move to lower it? And Frank, look, that becomes the question now. AJ Preller will talk to the media tomorrow, and look, we'll focus on the Pivetta part of it and what he brings. But to me, that's a major question for AJ tomorrow, and we'll see what info we get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, you're in for a penny, you're in for a dollar. There's no sense in just barely eking over the luxury tax. If you're over it, just go for it. At this point, it really doesn't make sense. And as far as the all righty rotation thing goes, Padres did not have a lefty starter until the middle of August last year. So you're right in the same boat you were in last year. There's nothing different about this year to last year as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. I'm not overly worried about the alrighty thing. It's what they did last year, but we'll see. Look, it's a fair point. But you look on their roster right now. There's not that lefty starter, so we'll see. All right, let's step aside. When we come back, more reaction to the Nick Pivetta deal on 97.3 The Fan. Back here on Inside San Diego Baseball on this Wednesday night. Sam Levitt with you from Peoria, Arizona, here at Padres Spring Training. It has already been an interesting program. Big news coming down just about an hour, 90 minutes ago, and this is according to Jeff Passan of ESPN. Jeff Passan reporting Nick Pivetta and the Padres agreeing on a 4-year, $55 million deal. Opt-outs after a year 2. In year 3, $3 million signing bonus for this year, and then a $1 million salary in 2025, $19 million in 2026, $14 million in 2027, $18 million in 2028. And Frank, we have some additional news about Alex Bregman. Tell the people about that. Chime in here like a breaking news anchor, if you will.
Yep, that we do. Alex Bregman is the newest third baseman, or at least the newest member, I should say, of the Boston Red Sox. According to, let me get the tweet back up here. According to Chandler Rome, who is an Astros beat writer for The Athletic, Alex Bregman signs with the Boston Red Sox for 3 years, $120 million. He does have opt-outs after each season because, God forbid, a player can sign a contract without an opt-out in it.
So that is $40 million AAV for Alex Bregman. I mean, that's massive. I mean, I'll tell you what. For Bregman, I like that deal a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guaranteed 120, 40 for this year. It's a pillow contract. He can hit the market next offseason if he has a good year. I love it. That's a great deal.
It's interesting with Boston, too.
Really is.
It's interesting with Boston, too, because he was linked to Chicago all offseason. He was pretty much slated for the Cubbies all year, all offseason.
Now, my other question is he going to play second base? I mean, they got Rafael Devers at third.
I mean, Devers
so is he a second baseman there?
You can't move Devers to first unless you're going to move Tristan Casas to DH.
Yeah.
He's going to end up being a middle. One of them is going to end up being a middle infielder. And I would have to assume it's going to be Bregman since he's the one that's coming in instead of the reigning, defending third baseman.
Yeah. That's interesting. Good for Alex Bregman. So the Red Sox really tonight have gained a draft pick, courtesy of the Padres, and now they sign Alex Bregman. So very, very interesting stuff. All right, Frank, let's pivot away from Nick Pivetta for a second. We'll get to your phone calls coming up, 833-288-0973, the phone number to call. Let's hear what Mike Schilt had to say earlier today, because we covered a lot with Mike Schilt earlier at his media availability. Here was Mike Schilt with the media earlier today on the first day of spring training.
Can you start with, I guess, your excitement then? I know guys have been here for a little bit, but pitchers and catchers, what does that mean?
I mean, it's like one of the best days of the year, right? It's hard to quantify the best, but it's in the top 5. Pitchers and catchers, here we are. You know, people talk about the off season when the pitcher catcher report. Well, here we are. We're reporting and we're getting after it. So it's an exciting day.
The group of guys that you have here, like A, they all report as far as you know, and B, like kind of what's your anticipation for this group of pitchers that you have on staff?
Yeah, everybody is in the building that's on the roster that's been signed, and so everybody's here. Did physicals this morning. You know, clearly we got a couple guys that are, you know, not going to be able to participate. You know, Joe clearly, but otherwise, you know, everybody's ready to rock.
You have 5 starters who did a really good job for you last year. Kind of unique that you would bring back that many.
Right.
But you don't have much beyond that that's proven. What are your plans there in terms of finding some depth?
Well, we have good competition, which is healthy. Let's start with the established guys. You know, it starts. I mean, Darvish had a really good offseason. Early, just in general, I'm comfortable and confident that we've won our offseason with our not only our pitchers but our position players. But specific to the starters, Darvish has had a really productive offseason. Is in a really good spot in every facet. So we got a healthy Darvish going, and you know, Michael, of course, coming off a great year, King, and has again got married or went on his honeymoon after the off season. So, that was exciting for him. But Michael's in a great spot, and of course Dylan. I don't know if you've seen the beard, but looking really good and coming off another great year of consistency and did a great job for us. So there's three guys that are right at the top that we feel comfortable about and being all equivalent of ones. And then no particular order. You've got Vasquez, who had a lot of opportunities for us last year and got better as the season went, and is clearly competing for a starting job. And then you've got Waldron. I mean, without Matt Waldron, the season didn't end the way he would have liked to have. We had a healthier club at the end, and we're clicking with some guys pitching well and returning. But Matt Waldron had a 6-week stretch last year that effectively kept us right in where we were looking to go. And so Matty's going to compete for that job, and Johnny Brito's going to get that opportunity as a starter, and so that'll be good. And we're going to lengthen out Stephen Kolick and give him an opportunity to start as well, and then we'll take it from there.
Is Kolick the only of the relievers that you plan to be stretched out, or could there be others?
Yeah, we discussed. I think we talked about it FanFest with Maury Hone, going to keep him in that reliever role. Same thing with Hoeing. There was a discussion internally about Brian, but I feel like he's in a good niche where he's at as well. So, Kolick's the only guy from last year's club. Of course, Brito was a bullpen guy that we put in El Paso to start, but that's it.
What do you like about Kolick's pitch mix that might play in that role?
He's got 4 pitches. He's got 4 pitches that allow him to be able to compete as a starter. So he's got the weapons, and we like all 4 of the pitches. They grade out as all average to plus pitches, and I like the fact he's got that power sinker that can allow him to get some quicker outs, get him on the ground, and get him in. If he gets in any traffic, to get him out of some jams, which can allow him to go deeper in games.
Forearm no longer a concern for him?
No, he's fully healthy and ready to go, and no limitations.
Same with Brito. I assume since you mentioned him, is he good to go this spring?
Yeah, Johnny's in a good spot and ready to go as well, and full steam ahead.
Since the last time we talked to you, you guys have signed 2 left fielders. How do you view Connor Joe and Jason Hayward and the way they would fit into this group?
Yeah, I've got some history with Jason. I mean, listen, the guy's a winner. Clearly won a World Series with the Cubs. Been, on a lot of postseason teams in his career. Virtually every year he's in the postseason. So you're talking about a winning player. I was with him in St. Louis in 2015. Came up at the end of that year, and he's just he's a proven guy, a real pro, and he's clearly going to get the opportunity to go play and take the opportunity in the left field that we have. And he's excited to be here, and we're excited to have him. So it's a really good addition, especially this late in the offseason. And then Connor Joe, local kid that has been able to play all over the field. So, he'll be in that mix a little bit as well, but he also has played first base, and, we do have more of a DH spot open as well. So, there's multiple different paths for Connor, and again, I'm really excited. I won't put words in his mouth clearly, but a guy that homegrown guy that's going to be able to have some home games. So plus makeup, plays the game right, and it'll be a good addition.
Yuki was struggling with the last season, the end of last season. So what does he need? Do you think?
We look at Yuki as we did with all our pitchers, but at the end of the season with Yuki, we realized, looking back, that he actually had a pretty darn good year. Making a lot of transitions for a lot of different, including the fact of not only the country, but the schedule and the travel is different. The ball's different. But the one thing that I didn't bring up a whole lot last year that was a transition for him is, Yuki historically had always pitched the 9th inning. And now he's got to learn to pitch the 6th or 7th and, get an inning and finish an inning. So it's just a different warm-up for him. And he acclimated pretty darn well. And you look up, and he gave up some homers in the second half, but this got a 5% walk rate and a 34% strikeout rate. So, his numbers, if he does that again, we'll be thrilled. And so he did a lot of good things for us, and looking for him. He had a really good offseason. He's strong. It looks good. And he's feeling good, so it's an exciting time for Yuki.
Do you have a starting catcher at the moment or a primary catcher?
Well, I mean, listen, we've got good catching competition, and that's healthy. We got competition in this camp, which I love. He's mentioned the starting rotation. There's competition there. There's competition with the catchers. I mean, clearly we, have signed Diaz to play, and rightfully so. All-Star 2 years ago, All-Star MVP, came up last year, helped us, contributed. So, clearly, he's going to be a part of the mix. But, you look at Campy, and Campy was, similar to Matt Waldron. You look at the numbers with Campy on, you can evaluate catchers a lot of different ways, clearly. But, one of the ways that we evaluate a lot of what we do is if we win or not. And if you look at Campy's record his one-loss record, it's pretty darn good. And there's a lot of factors to that, clearly. But point being is Campy had a good year for us. And at the end of the year, we get Diaz in. And, but we look back at the body of work, and it was productive for Campy. So we expect him to, like I mentioned, like FanFest, had a good offseason, went to winter ball, Dominican, and played. And it's in a good spot to come in and compete for playing time like he got last year. And then you're talking about, Brett Sullivan came up, helped us out. He's been a guy in the organization up and down for the last couple of years that has done a nice job for us. Again, went to winter ball and work on his game. So Sully's guy that's in that mix. And we just signed a guy that's won 2 World Series with Maldonado that's really hungry still after 13 years in this at this level. So it's going to be a really healthy competition, and we're excited about it.
Despite you being out like half the season and Dart and Musgrove being out half the season and the TJ, you guys only used 8 starters last year. So they did well, but you're also pretty fortunate. How do you look back at last year and how you were able to kind of piece that together?
Yeah, you know what? The credit goes to the players for being able to put their time and take care of themselves. We've got a really good staff that does their jobs, but we've got good cohesiveness amongst our pitching group, including our starters, relative to the training room and the prehab that they do and the what they do recovery wise, what they do in the weight room, how they take care of themselves off the field with their diet and sleep and nutrition. And we do our part to make sure we're not taxing them too much when they get their start every 5th or 6th day, and communicate with them on how they feel. So that's part of the equation for this. And so there's a lot of things that go into it. The fact that we can look back on the teams that have been good, regardless of here or other places. A fairly high percentage of them are going to have, a starting group that logs a lot of the starts. So last year using 8 starters was part of our success, and again, with those contributions from, like I say, Waldy and Vasquez to be able to pick up those starts when Joe and you were down were huge.
That was Mike Schilt, his full media availability from earlier today in Peoria, Arizona. Sam Levitt back with you here at the Airbnb in Peoria. Frank Marchese back in our San Diego studios. And you did hear there, as part of the comments, Stephen Kolek. And again, I do wonder a little bit now how much the Nick Pivetta signing impacts something like this. I don't know that it does. But the idea that Stephen Kolek would be stretched out to a starter. Now, is it something that that Kolek is unfamiliar with? He was a starting pitcher in the minor leagues for a while. He hasn't done it since 2022. But, Frank, interesting, somebody like Stephen Kolek, you talk about that 5th starter spot, could be a guy to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. And again, I said it last hour, and I think I said it last week with you, is that I'm surprised that it wouldn't be Johnny Brito first, since he came over as a starter. He went down at the end of last year to get stretched out to be a starter. So I'm surprised that it's not Johnny Brito and that it's Stephen Kolek instead that's getting this nod. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to stretch him out. I may not stretch him out quite as long as I was planning on. Maybe instead of having a pitch cap for Kolek around 90, bring it down to like 75, maybe be a fourth guy in, and he's the first guy that comes in if Waldron or Vasquez have an issue and can't get through the second or third inning. That would be something I could think you could still do with Kolek, but I would have to assume it affects it in some way, shape, or form, because now Stephen Kolek really isn't fighting for that fifth spot in the rotation.
Yeah, look, I do think, I guess earlier today before this Pivetta signing, I thought, maybe there's an outside chance that somebody like Stephen Kolek could make the rotation. Let's say Matt Waldron struggles. Let's say Randy Vasquez struggles. Let's say Johnny Brito struggles. But, yeah, now you look at it for that fifth and final spot. It would seem out of kind of out of left field if Kolek were to be that guy. So look, these are the kind of things that that happen during spring training where guys get signed, things get moved around, and now we see what happens with Stephen Kolek. I do want to read this here from Kevin Acee in the San Diego Union Tribune. He came out with an article just within the last few minutes talking about this Nick Pivetta signing. This is from Kevin in the UT. The acquisition of Pivetta affirms the claims made by Padres management that they were not done with their offseason, which until recently had consisted of 3 free agent signings for a total of $5.5 million in salary and bonuses. And by the way, this is me talking now. That is, think about that for a second, Frank. They just signed Pivetta for $55 million. They had only spent $5.5 before tonight. Again, we talk about this being shocking. That's a part of it. It has just totally come out of left field. That number really, exemplifies it.
And that's where my thought of, okay, maybe the fact that you now have a confirmed ownership set in place now. There's still stuff going on, but MLB has acknowledged an owner. So maybe they didn't feel comfortable spending money until that was settled, at least by Major League Baseball. That's where I got the thought from. But, clearly the money's there.
Yeah, well, and this is interesting from Kevin. And he's writing here, it also indicates that the line the team had drawn of not going over the competitive balance tax threshold was not in ink. The Padres currently sit about $17 million over the first threshold with the CBT payroll of $258 million. The penalty for going over that mark is a 20% charge on the overage. The CBT payroll, which takes into account the average annual value of contracts and player benefits, is not official until the end of the season. Kevin writes here, the primary concern for the Padres was always their cash payroll this year. So, again, Frank, look, the way Kevin's writing there, and, I'll talk to Kevin tomorrow and get more of his thoughts. The way he's writing there, it seems like maybe he's getting indications that the Padres aren't worried about the CBT, which, by the way, is great. That's a great thing if that's the case. I'm just, again, based on the reporting from earlier in the offseason, I'm pleasantly surprised if that's the case, because it really didn't seem like it was going that way.
Yeah, no, it looked like they were going to be tight with the wallet the entire offseason, and now you get down to the nitty-gritty, and I've already seen it on Twitter. Okay, so where was this when we wanted Profar? Where was this when Higashioka got signed? Where was this when all these other guys got signed? So, it's, in some ways, it is better late than never, but what was the shift? Where did it change? What was the moment where they said, okay, now, we're good enough to make one of these deals now? That's the only thing that's bugging me about it is, what changed? What changed?
Look, that's an interesting way to think about it. And again, we're not going to know the answer to this, but had they, Frank, it's an interesting thought. If they do end up heading into opening day above the CBT, it will make you wonder a little bit, okay, if you could do that, and maybe they didn't know, maybe this has evolved as the off seasons rolled along, and that's possible. But it will make you wonder a bit of like, okay, could that money have been spent elsewhere? Could you have been even more creative knowing you had more to spend? And I guess maybe that, that's something we hear from AJ Preller about tomorrow. We'll see.
And I can't think of it being something that changed in December. It has to be something that has changed recently. And the only thing that I've seen that's changed recently is who was confirmed as the owner of the organization by Major League Baseball. That's the only thing, that's the only significant thing that would impact a decision like this that has changed over the course of the last couple of weeks. Because it just doesn't make sense. Why now are you willing to go over the luxury tax when it was a hard line 2 months ago? It doesn't make sense.
The other part of this that is, so interesting, and again, it's just it's almost like standard operating procedure with AJ Preller. Like, again, we saw it last year with Profar, with the Cease deal right before they went to Korea. He does this, right, Frank? Like, where he strikes really late. And this is another example of it where, like, spring training rolls around and they're not done. So, it's just a good reminder, like, this is sort of how they operate. And, AJ has a knack for doing it like this. He really does.
And I'm not saying it had to be a pitcher. I'm saying, like, again, Higashioka coming back would have been great. It was about the same amount of money. That would have been fantastic. Everyone was wanting that. There are other players, position players, that could have filled roles, better catchers, left fielders, that fit the bill for this amount of money or less than this amount of money. I don't know. It's not a bad problem to have right now. It's just my mind and the way it works.
Yeah, look, and I think Adam made a good point in the chat. Maybe nothing has changed. They just hadn't found a deal they liked until now. I mean, look, could be. Here's what I will say. In the immediate, right now, in reality, I just like that they signed a veteran professional starting pitcher who can eat up one of these spots, because as of this morning, there were two very clear question marks in that rotation, and now one of them has been filled. And to me, at a base level, that's very good. Phone calls when we come back. Call us 833-288-0973. More after this on 97.3 The Fan.
It's time for an inside look at what's cooking on the San Diego Padres hot stove as the team gets ready for the 2025 season.
Swing and a miss. Padres win.
Sam Levitt breaks down the Padres offseason moves and provides an in-depth look at everything you need to know before the Padres take the field for spring training.
Swinging a high fly ball. Deep left center. This one way back and gone.
Plus the latest headlines from around Major League Baseball and analysis of what's happening around the big leagues.
Breaking news out of baseball.
Welcome to Inside San Diego Baseball with the Padres Radio Network's pre- and post-game host, Sam Levitt.
Hour number 2 of Inside San Diego Baseball on this Wednesday night here on 97.3 The Fan. Sam Levitt with you from Peoria, Arizona. Padres spring training. First day of spring. Pitchers and catchers reporting. We had a very sort of a ho-hum type of first day of spring training. I'll be honest with you. Not that much went on that was out of the ordinary. We got there. Everybody had smiles on. You know, we had the pitchers and catchers, a lot of bullpens, live BPs. We had pitchers fielding practice, otherwise known as PFPs. Pretty, reasonable, normal first day of spring. And then we're getting ready to do this show tonight, Inside San Diego Baseball, Wednesday night, 7 and 9, during the off season and now during spring training here on 97.3 The Fan. And we get the big news. Nick Pivetta reportedly signing a 4-year, $55 million deal with the Padres, according to Jeff Passan of ESPN. So, big news. We've talked about it a lot in the first hour. Here in hour number 2, we'll hear from Matt Waldron. We'll also hear from Elias Diaz, who we caught up with earlier today in Peoria. We'll continue to talk about this Nick Pivetta signing. Phone number, as always, 833-288-0973. Let's go back to the phones. We go across the pond. It's our old friend, Welsh Fryer. Welsh, what's up? What time is it in Wales right now?
It's very late at the moment, but I think this signing's really, really shocked me. So I'm kind of like looking into it at the moment. So. Yeah,
well, Welsh Fryer, we always value your opinion. You might be far away, but you're as a loyal a Padres fan as they come. Your initial thoughts on the Nick Pivetta signing as you look into this thing?
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. Hope you're doing well. I think, first of all, I'm excited now that Prella's kind of woken up in a way, and he's starting to make all these signs. Some of them may not have been massive, but this Pivetta one has been quite big in comparison to other ones, and obviously throughout the whole off season. So I'm definitely excited about that. But the one thing about Pivetta that I've seen is that he's quite a big home run giving pitcher. So I think that's going to really kind of go to our advantage. Petco Park, obviously, it's a pitcher's ballpark, and Pivetta's just been playing in probably one of the best offensive divisions in baseball, and at Fenway Park, which obviously, lots of home runs get given up there. So, yeah, that's good. And we know what Nieves is like as well. I think he's going to really, really help Pivetta here. But, yeah, I'm definitely very excited here. I think this is such a big positive, although, like I said, it was a big shock. But I'm excited to see. We know what Pivetta's like. He likes to pull things out of the bag, and they do work a lot of the time. We saw with Cease and Arise last year. So, yeah, I think this is definitely a massive positive and a step forward for the Padres.
Yeah, Welsh Fryer, good stuff, and I agree with you. Look, I think there's a lot of potential to it. I think it could be a very, very good thing, and we'll see. Look, we felt all off season. I think a lot of us, including me and Welsh Fryer, appreciate the phone call as always. Thank you for your loyalty to the Padres and 97.3 The Fan. But look, I said this really going back months. Look, I was going to be very, very surprised if we got to opening day and the Padres didn't do something significant. Now, are they done? That's the key question. Look, I like the Pivetta signing a lot. We've talked about it. We've talked about the upside. We've talked about the creativity in the deal. But now the question becomes, and again, we talked about what Kevin Acee wrote earlier today. The question becomes, if they are staying above the luxury tax, that's great, but is there another move? Is there a trade? Is there another signing? I mean, look, Matt Waldron's a solid option as a number 5. Randy Vasquez is a solid option as a number 5, I think, especially if you have King, Cease, Darvish, Pivetta as your top 4. But what's to say if they're going to spend and they're going to go above the CBT, which now looks to be a remote possibility, not even really remote, but at least pretty realistic here. They're sitting way above it now. What's to say they don't spend a little bit more money? I mean, maybe there's another starter out there they can go get. I always felt like AJ would strike, and it took a while, but this is a significant move, okay? It's not, the biggest move they've made the last handful of years, but it's significant nonetheless. Let's go to Arturo in Eastlake calling in. Arturo, you're on 97.3 The Fan as we react to the Padres reportedly signing veteran right-hander Nick Pivetta. Go ahead.
Hey, Sammy, how are you, my friend?
Hey, is this my Uber driver, Arturo?
Yes, it's your Uber driver.
Yeah, there we go. I love it. Good to hear from you.
More apropos, your dad's Uber driver. I'd be happy to be your Uber driver. My offer still stands.
All right,
hey,
thank
listen,
you.
Sam, of course, you're welcome. There's a lot of, speculation whether this team's going to be competitive enough and all that. But I tend to always try to be optimistic, and I've seen so many things over the years, and we just saw it last year where individual efforts that stand out. Like we had the Profar, we had the Kyle Higashioka, and I mean I could go on, and we all know here, audience knows, but I'm thinking Terso Ornelas might be a wild card. I saw him play in the Caribbean League, and he's a left-hander, right? So maybe we wind up having a platoon of Terso and Connor Joe. What do you think?
Well, look, and it's funny with the Pivetta news, we have not even addressed some of the other news that happened since the last time we were on, which was the Padres signing Connor Joe and Jason Hayward. I think we'll save that for next segment. We'll get into that, Joe and Hayward, and what that combination might look like. But I'll tell you what, a couple of thoughts on Tirso Ornelas, because, before the Hayward and Joe signings, I mean, I would have put Tirso right towards the top of the list as far as candidates to play left field. I really would have. I mean, what were their options before Joe and Hayward? So, look, I'll say this. He was there today at spring training. I've had a chance now to see Tirso up close in person the last couple of years. He's a big guy, strong, very tall, looks like a home run hitter. Look, I think for Tirso, even though that idea that he could win, let's say, a starting job is pretty much out the door with the Joe and Hayward signings. Look, I think for Ornelas, it may actually be a good thing because, look, this is a team. You look at their bench right now, I mean, there are wide open spots. Tyler Wade is going to be on this bench, and then beyond that, I mean, you try telling me for sure who's going to be on this bench. I mean, it's all guys that either have, a bit of major league experience or no major league experience. And Tirso, to me, even with the addition of Joe and Hayward, will have an opportunity, to steal a bench spot. I mean, this is another great opportunity for Tirso Ornelas. It's maybe not quite the opportunity that it was a week ago with the signings of Hayward and Joe, but Tirso is, he's big, he's strong. I won't make it like I'm a Tirso Ornelas expert, but he's somebody who's been in the system for a long time. Obviously, he had a very good year at AAA El Paso last year, and I will say, Arturo, he's somebody that intrigues me, right? Like, it looked at one point last year like Tirso Ornelas was going to get that shot, was going to get an opportunity to make his major league debut, to get called up to the major leagues. It never happened. It was kind of rumored about it at one point last year. It never quite happened, but there's a nice opportunity for him to make this team. So, look, that's what spring training is all about. I haven't really got into like some of the observations from today. We will get into that maybe in our next segment, but it's a nice opportunity for Tirso Ornelas. It really, really is. And we'll talk about Connor Joe and Jason Hayward in our next segment as well. We'll kind of get back into that. We'll hear from Elias Diaz. We'll hear from Matt Waldron as well before we get out of here. But again, if you're just joining us, maybe you're just hopping in the car, Padres reportedly signing Nick Pivetta to a 4-year, $55 million deal. And again, he's been a reliably solid starter last few years for the Red Sox. Again, the one good thing, and you can add this to the list, Frank, of things that you like about Pivetta, 156 innings per season. Again, you look at a 4.33 ERA from 2021 to 2024, it's not going to blow you away. But again, if you want to really look at this very much glass half full, the fact that he's averaged over 150 innings, so typically he's been a guy that has been at least somewhat of a workhorse, strikes out a lot of guys. We heard the snippet from Paul Hembekides and Buster Olney a little bit earlier. Some of the other things you like about Pivetta beyond the traditional numbers, he doesn't walk a ton of guys. He's pitched a little bit differently. So it all plays into the equation of, again, I think a contract, that you like on a number of levels. Is it a little bit of a risk that you could have, a guy at $13+ million AAV who is living in the 4 and 5s of ERAs? Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a risk. But it does appear, and I think this is an important part of it, and what I'm interested to hear from A.J. Preller tomorrow, I think I think clearly there's some upside here, and you hope that upside is realized. And also, look, he's going to work with a guy in Ruben Niebla who's done a really, really nice job developing guys. I mean, it's not the same situation, I understand that, but we've seen Ruben work with a lot of guys, whether it was a Michael Wacha or a Seth Lugo. Again, different situations. I'm not comparing it, one to the other. Wacha is a little bit similar, a guy who, had kind of, been a middle of the rotation type of guy and then put together a really good year. Like, I think maybe that's a good comparison for this in a way. I'd have to dive into their numbers a little bit more. But, look, there is reason, I think, Frank, to believe that there's upside here. And we'll see. Again, I like it just because, as basic as it sounds, you had 2 spots in a rotation for a team that, should be right in the mix. And you know what? Nick Pivetta is a professional starting pitcher who can eat up innings. And if you think there's upside there and you did the creative accounting with the contracts, it's a deal that could work out, I think. And I like it. It's a foot on the gas pedal move. It's a let's go over the CBT type of move unless there's a trade coming. So, again, like if you're a Padres fan, while this may not be what you envisioned at the start of the offseason, at least when you go to bed tonight, you're hanging your hat on the fact that, hey, they spent some real money. They've done something to improve the team. At least at the moment, they are above that luxury tax threshold. And unless they make some major moves, they're going to stay above it. Like, I'm feeling pretty good. Like, it's a good indicator, at least right here, right now. I really think that, Frank, even if it's not a perfect signing in a way.
No, it absolutely is. And I've said it. It's the perfect signing for this year. And where I get in trouble is I don't stop after that. But there's really nothing to complain about as far as the move this year. And I mean, you look at the numbers, there have been plenty of great pitchers that have gone through Boston, that have gone through Philadelphia, that have low ERAs. Nick Pivetta is not one of them. But you do have to look at his high ERA as, partly it's Fenway. Also to start his career, partly because it's Citizens Bank Park. And Citizens Bank Park is another very easy place to hit home runs in. So that does affect his ERA. Now, there's really not much excuse for it, but he is a very good middle of the rotation, middle to back end of the rotation pitcher, which is exactly what this team needed. And he's going to stay that way, even next year, because you'll get Musgrove back to fill in the spot of whoever you lose, whether it be King or Cease. It's a very solid move. It's a safe move, whether I think you overpaid for next year especially or not. It's a great move.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these projections here from various sites, just to play around with them. So Fangraphs has him as 136 innings, 154 strikeouts, 4.01 ERA, 1.17 WHIP. Again, it's going to be like a middle of the rotation kind of guy. I take a 4.01.
You're four guy.
Look, you can look at these. But Clay, again, there's a million projections here. Clay Davenport, I'm not sure. We tweeted this out at 97.3 The Fan. I'm not sure where we got this list. Clay Davenport has him at 178 again. We're talking about random projections here. I wonder how one projection has him at 178 innings and another has him at 136. That seems like
someone's
wide
expecting an
margin.
injury.
I guess. Anyway, we're just looking at projections here, but yeah, I mean, if you think there's upside there and you get him working with Ruben, I'm really fine with it. I am, and good. Look, good for the Padres getting creative. I mean, there's been so much made, of the Dodgers and the deferred payments, and this is a different situation. It's kind of comparing apples to oranges, but good for AJ getting creative, like to make it work for this year. Because I'll tell you what, again, and we read what Kevin Acee wrote a little bit earlier about, the Padres being very, very focused on their cash payroll for this year. If they weren't able to make it a $3 million signing bonus and a $1 million number for this year, maybe they can't make it work, this contract in general. So, good for them making it work, and, you go from there. So interesting. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll continue to take your phone calls. If you want to get them in, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We'll also hear from Elias Diaz and Matt Waldron, both of whom I caught up with a little bit earlier in the day here in Peoria. And we'll also talk about Jason Hayward and Connor Joe, which we have really not discussed to this point. Again, if you're just joining us, significant news, the most significant signing news of the Padres offseason. I mean, let's put it that way, right? I mean, it is here tonight on the first day of pitchers and catchers reporting. The Padres signing Nick Pivetta to a 4-year, $55 million deal, according to ESPN's Jeff Passan. So we'll continue to discuss that when we return, and much, much more. It's Inside San Diego Baseball on a Wednesday night here on 97.3 The Fan. Back here on 97.3 The Fan. Sam Levitt with you here on Inside San Diego Baseball on this Wednesday night. We are live from Peoria, Arizona. First day of Padres spring training. Pitchers and catchers reporting earlier today. It was a pretty run-of-the-mill first day of spring training. I mean, it was fun, and I'll get a little bit deeper into my day in our last segment. But pretty normal day, and then we get this very, very big news. At the end of today, Nick Pivetta, reportedly, according to Jeff Passan of ESPN, signing a 4-year, $55 million deal with the Padres. Some creative accounting. It'll give him a $3 million signing bonus, $1 million salary for this year, so it keeps the Padres' cash payroll pretty manageable as far as 2025. Then the numbers jump way up after that. There are opt-outs after year 2 and year 3 of the deal. And for luxury tax purposes, it's $13+ million. So it is a pretty significant, not pretty significant, a very significant luxury tax hit. It firmly puts the Padres above that first luxury tax threshold. So, again, we've discussed it throughout the course of the last hour, 20 minutes here. But the question becomes, are the Padres good with living above that luxury tax threshold? Is there another move coming? These are all questions that I'm sure, A.J. Preller will get asked tomorrow morning. I will share with you that A.J. is scheduled to speak with the media tomorrow. I don't know if that was scheduled beforehand. Typically A.J. does early in spring training speak with the media. But could be that he was going to talk anyway. Could be because of this Pivetta signing, although the Padres have not officially announced it. So I want to be careful with that. But anyway, A.J. Preller will talk tomorrow. We'll see what answers we get from A.J. But again, and we've talked about it plenty here, again, just you have to like it from the sense of, hey, I mean, they made a significant signing. They spent some money. Makes them a better team. A better starting rotation, I think in my mind for sure. Pivetta's got some upside. You like the strikeout rate. You like some of the outlying numbers with him, the peripherals with him. So it's all very, very good stuff. And if you want to get a phone call in, react to the Nick Pivetta signing or anything else, you can do that at 833-288-0973. We'll hear from Matt Waldron, who spoke with the media in just a second, because I do want to play some of what Matt Waldron said earlier today, and really for two reasons. Number one, even with this Pivetta signing, Matt's still going to have a really good shot to nab that fifth spot in the starting rotation. Now, that's now been whittled down to one spot. Earlier today, looked like that would be two spots, but Matt is going to be a candidate for that fifth and final spot. There was a comment here on X that made me laugh, though, on the quote I posted from Matt Waldron earlier today that I just want to share. It's a picture of Matt in front of his locker, and then I posted a quote that you're going to hear in a second here with the audio. And been tweeting, Sammy, on these interviews in the locker room, can you start off with a wide shot so us fantasy campers can see who is using our lockers? So now I'm getting requests from fantasy campers. They want to see what locker is being used by what player. But Kevin, if you're listening to this, DM me, tell me, give me a description of which locker you used, and I will personally, for you, try to tell you who is using that locker. Okay, Kevin? So this is going to be a special offer from me. You DM me, and I'll do my best during spring training to figure out who's using your locker. Okay? Look, Matt Waldron, we'll hear from him in a second here, has a real shot to make this team again. Now remember, Matt Waldron essentially did this a year ago. There was one spot in the Padres rotation. There was a battle between Matt Waldron, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, a couple of other names you could throw in there as well. And Matt Waldron, because of what he did in spring training, won that job. And let's not forget, Matt Waldron, for a very, very good portion of last season, was not just good. He was really good. He was very, very important to the Padres starting rotation. Now, I don't want to say what he did got forgotten, because it didn't get forgotten, but he hit a wall in the late part of the season struggled, eventually was optioned down to AAA El Paso, and we didn't hear from Matt again. But put it this way, it's not that I don't think, I know you can't tell the story of the 2024 Padres that won 93 games without talking about what Matt Waldron did for 2 to 3 months. I mean, you'll remember when Darvish was out, when Musgrove was out. We can go through the numbers. I don't even have to go through them. He was great. I mean, he really held it down while those guys were out. And you'll hear from Matt here in a second. And I said it earlier on Annie and Elston, he is, to me, a fascinating case because he's still, to me, a real unknown. He's still, to me, somebody who is learning how to throw the knuckleball, how to use it, developing his relationship with that pitch. Now, he averaged 38% usage last year. That was a little all over the place. There were some games where he was up above 40%. There were other games where he was in the 20s. So it was not consistent around 38%, but as an average, it was at 38%. He has been somebody that has struck me over the last couple of years that is really still a work in progress. And that's why with Matt Waldron, I just wonder if we've still yet to see the best of Matt Waldron. That's what I'll say about Matt. And I think he's got a real shot to make this team, unless the Padres go out and sign somebody else for that fifth starter spot. But when you talk about options the Padres have, I think Matt's got about as good of a shot as anybody to make this starting rotation. So here was Matt Waldron earlier today inside the Padres clubhouse with me, AJ Cassavell of MLB.com, Dennis Lynn of The Athletic there as well. Some comments from Matt Waldron. He begins by talking about his offseason.
Yeah, it was good. The first couple of weeks are obviously pretty light and just, put the ball down and, digest the year. But yeah, no, it was good. Ready to get started again, and the feelings in the air again, and with spring training and just baseball around the corner. So just grateful to be a part of it, and gonna do what I can to try and help out.
How do you dissect last year now and use it now going forward into what you can be this year? And what happened last year? Kind of the way it started, the way it finished.
Yeah, I would say just, remembering what I need to remember with some of the failures, and but also just, remember all the positive things and build off of those. And if I've done it once, I believe I can do it again. So just really try and take it from there, and, really striving for a more consistent year this year. I thought I started pretty well and had a good stretch there, and, I think some failure got in the way and maybe altered a little bit of confidence, but just going to do my best to do what it takes.
What do you think is the key to more consistency this year, whether it's more knuckleballs or mechanics or anything on the conditioning side or anything like that?
Yeah, I think all of them, really. I think both just my arm slot's going to be more consistent this year. I think I fluctuated that a little bit to be a little bit lower last year. But also just, I think I'm going to throw a little bit more knuckleballs this year and rely on that and make them really respect that. And then once, just really kind of go from there and compete the best that I can.
Obviously, last year you came into spring training knowing that there was an open spot in the rotation. It was that competition from the outset.
Yeah.
Sort of a similar situation this year. How do you feel like going through what you went through last spring training might help you this time around in sort of a similar spot?
Right, yeah. I think just, it is healthy competition with your teammates. And like I said last year, I think my plan was just to try and make it hard for them and not to want to have to use me, but just you have to be the best option. That's the only way you can look at it, is just you got to be the best, the next man up, and just, run with it from there. And so that's going to be the goal this spring training.
Without going into too many details of how many knuckleballs you're going to throw, the specifics of that, what is the impetus behind kind of wanting to increase that usage?
What is the emphasis behind it?
Yeah, behind wanting to increase the usage of the knuckleball.
I just look at some of my best games last year with the Phillies, Guardians, and those are two off the top of my head. But I just really relied on those pitches, and I felt like it kept them off balance, and and I think the intent on it might have wavered a little bit back, and I feel like I just want to really emphasize throwing it hard and more consistently throughout the entire game. And
With the arm slot, is that purposely getting it higher this year, or just not letting it drop?
yeah, it's more of not letting it drop, and it's not necessarily a lazy thing, but like it's hard to repeat if you change it every time. So just throwing every pitch. It sounds so obvious, but it's when you make 1,000 pitches a year, it's pretty easy to let some things waver sometimes.
That was Matt Waldron earlier today with myself, AJ Cassavell, and Dennis Lynn. So you heard a lot there from Matt about his offseason, about using that knuckleball more, relying on it more. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where it's at his first start of spring training. What does relying on it more mean? I mean, we saw him throw it as much as 40+% last year. Does he get it up to more of a traditional knuckleball, or I should say knuckleballer level? I mean, traditional knuckleballer, you're throwing that thing 70, 75, 80% of the time. Matt has not been that guy. There certainly has been a trend with him over time, very slowly, of throwing it more. So, again, I'm intrigued by Matt. I talked about it earlier on Andy and Elston. To me, he is far from a finished product, and I thought last year he showed that he can be a successful major league pitcher, that there's no reason Matt Waldron couldn't be, for this team again in 2025, a very solid fifth starter type. I really believe that. So Matt's got another good opportunity, and very good to catch up with Matt Waldron earlier today. Always a very cool, calm, collected, chill Matt Waldron as well. All right, we'll hear from Elias Diaz coming up a little bit later in the hour, probably in about 5 to 10 minutes, so stay tuned for that. Caught up with the Padres catcher, Elias Diaz, earlier today. But we do have more phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, the phone number to call as we continue to react to the Padres reportedly signing right-handed pitcher Nick Pivetta to a 4-year, $55 million deal. Let's go to Jamie in San Ysidro. Jamie, you're on 97.3 The Fan. Go ahead.
Sammy Lev.
Hey.
Hardest working guy in baseball.
Well, I will say, Jamie, they really gave me a long day for day one of spring training. I was on Ben and Woods at 6:40 this morning, and it's now 8:30 in the evening. I was at the complex all day, fit in a quick dinner, did some editing, and I'm on the air. So, yes, I've been worked hard today, but Jamie, this is my job. This is what I signed up for, and it's officially baseball season. So here we are.
You're agreeing. When I see you in the stands, when Ben and Woods were there, and you guys are all, well, Woods was there. You guys are all having a chit chat. I think your mom was there at the seats that one day.
Oh, okay.
You are the hardest working guy in baseball.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Jamie. What you got? Go ahead.
So, did you also do some other sports as a announcer?
Yeah, I still do. Used to do more of it, college basketball, college football, college volleyball. But yeah, back in my minor league days, oh my goodness, in the fall and winter, I was doing a ton of college basketball. No hockey, never hockey, but I've done a lot.
No hockey?
No hockey. No hockey.
All right, I'm going to give my 2 cents right now about two things.
You got it.
I agree with the fact we need to sign some guys, which we signed. And I'm not going to say who we signed. We need some options, and we have 2. My second thing is, did you watch the hockey game tonight? Hockey, Canada, baseball, America.
No,
hockey.
I didn't.
USA is coming up right now, the Four Nations Cup.
Oh, yeah, I did see something about that. I'm not the hockey guy. Frank, producing tonight, he does love some hockey, so maybe he can fill us in. Jamie, appreciate the phone call, my friend. Appreciate it. And Jamie, a loyal listener, so we appreciate it as always. Frank, I have no idea what Jamie's talking about as far as hockey. I'm not really sure what Jamie was getting to in general there, but fill me in on the hockey.
The NHL is on pause right now. There's a competition going on right now called the Four Nations Cup. I believe it's the U.S., Canada, Finland, and Sweden. I think it is. Canada played Sweden today. I don't know what the final of that one was. I would have to assume it was a pretty good game. Mitch Marner scored an overtime winner for Canada, so there's that. It was 4-3 in overtime. Canada wins over Sweden. U.S. plays Finland tomorrow. That game's going to be on ESPN at 5 o'clock.
Great.
There you go.
We got the hockey update here tonight. My goodness. All right. When we come back, we'll take more of your phone calls, 833-288-0973. I also caught up with Elias Diaz, Padres catcher, earlier today. Thought it was a really good conversation with Elias. We'll continue to react to the Nick Pivetta signing. Padres reportedly signing Pivetta to a 4-year, $55 million deal. We'll talk more about that and more as we enter our final segment. Also, we haven't talked about Connor Joe and Jason Hayward, so we'll talk about that as well when we return here on 97.3 The Fan. Back here on 97.3 The Fan, final segment of Inside San Diego Baseball on this Wednesday night. Live from Arizona. Padres spring training underway as of this morning. Pitchers and catchers reporting. Live BPs, bullpens, PFPs, batting practice, fielding drills, you name it, they were doing it in Peoria today. I don't know that there was anything really headline worthy from the workout today. Pretty standard stuff. Although I will say, we had great video today. If you go to the fans' X account, 97.3 The Fan SD, tons of great video and photos of everybody you can imagine, including Ethan Salas and Leo DeVries and minor leaguers, Braden Nett, guys that you may have heard of in the past. So plenty of video there. I was on my full spring training Sammy grind today for sure. Also have that video up on Instagram, on the 97.3 The Fan Instagram. So anyway, my point is, if you want the best coverage wall to wall, literally wall to wall, field to field, foul line to foul line, if you will, every day at spring training, you follow us on social media this time of year and you will get that. So nothing really headline worthy, which is, to be honest with you, a good thing, first day of spring, because typically if you have headlines the first day of spring, they're not typically good. So the Padres didn't have any of that, but obviously biggest headline of the offseason, player personnel-wise, Nick Pivetta reportedly signing with the Padres, 4-year, $55 million deal. Very interesting deal where the Padres will give him a $3 million signing bonus and a $1 million salary for this year, and that jumps way up in the years to come. Options after year 2 and year 3 of the deal. But the Padres get a veteran starting pitcher to add into this rotation, along with Michael King, Yu Darvish, Dylan Cease, and, of course, appears to, at least right now, be an open competition for that 5th and final spot. We will hear from Elias Diaz in just a couple of minutes, but before I get to that, one thing that we've not discussed here on the show tonight was the other big news right before spring training began, and that was the Padres signing both Connor Joe and Jason Hayward. Very low money deals, around $1 million each. Look, I've talked about it on a couple of the shows at this point. I like the deals because I think they're low risk and potentially high reward deals. You got to live in the reality of the now. And before Connor Joe and Jason Hayward were signed, and I don't mean this as a knock to Tirso and Ellis or any of the other players that are in that spring training clubhouse right now or in the days to come, but what were the Padres' options in left field? Jurickson Profar wasn't coming back. They weren't signing, a major contract to play left field. So at a certain point, your options are your options. And the Padres decided to go get a couple of veterans. Obviously, Jason Hayward, really a veteran, has been around forever and has won a World Series and has been on a lot of winning teams, which I like. Connor Joe has had some nice moments. Has put together a pretty nice career. San Diego area native and went to USD, so you like that. What I do like about this pairing potentially with Hayward and Joe is simply this, is that it could work as a straight up platoon because Hayward hits righties, always has. Joe hits lefties, always has. As a straight up platoon could work. I'm not saying they're going to give you Jurickson Profar type production. I'm not saying they're going to hit a combined 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. I'm not saying that at all. But in a lineup where you should have a lot of power and a lot of bop from other parts of the lineup, there is a potential in a perfect world, in a glass half full world, where those two guys are productive enough to make it work, to be a nice pairing, to be a nice platoon out there. And to me, that's got to be the hope, is that those two guys can give you enough production, give you solid defense, and you can get by with those two guys. And look, I like the Padres going out and just getting a couple of guys for pretty cheap. It's very similar to bringing in guys like Solano and Peralta, different situations, but very similar in that they're very low-risk moves. Little bit different. Solano, Peralta were minor league deals a year ago, but they're low risk. You hope it ends up more like the Solano and Peralta and not the Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz. Remember, Matt Carpenter was making way more money than Jason Hayward or Connor Joe is, so right there it's a lot different. But we'll see. Look, again, was it exactly how you thought left field would shake out? Would you rather have Jurickson Profar back? Sure. I mean, I understand that in the macro picture of this offseason. But when you're sitting there in early to mid-February, and spring training is a few days away, and that was a major question mark in left field. I didn't mind at all the Padres going and making a couple of very low-risk signings, saying, let's give this kind of platoon a shot. One guy who hits righties really nicely, one guy who hits lefties really nicely, and we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. I don't know how that platoon will shake out, how they'll do, but I do think there's a potential that it's good enough for this team and this roster in what they need. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. All right, we'll give you some final thoughts on Nick Pivetta at the very bottom of the hour, but I did catch up with Elias Diaz, Padres catcher, earlier today. You'll hear, I think A.J. Cassavell jumped in this for a little bit as well, a little bit later in the interview. This is Elias Diaz, Padres catcher, signed a handful of weeks ago. I think a lot of us expect Elias to be the primary catcher, at least at the start of the year. Here is Elias Diaz, along with interpreter Danny Sanchez. Elias, obviously back here with the Padres after finishing last season with San Diego. How's it feel to be back with this group of guys?
Bueno, que cómo se siente estar de regreso aquí con el equipo, con tus compañeros.
No, me siento bastante contento, ¿verdad? Por la nueva oportunidad que me está dando San Diego, y bueno, yo creo que estamos preparados para un tremendo año.
Yeah, I feel super happy to be back here with the team. I'm super grateful for the opportunity that San Diego has given me, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the season and the work that we're going to do.
Elias, what was the process of re-signing with the Padres? What were the conversations like? Did you have interest from other teams? How did the offseason play out for you?
Bueno, que cómo estuvo el proceso, o sea, que si tuviste conversaciones con otros equipos, el proceso de firmar de regreso con los Padres.
Sí, fue un proceso para mí bastante duro, de verdad. Los primeros equipos interesados fue San Diego, fueron otros ahí. Pues tuve conversaciones, pero yo me sentía bastante bien con San Diego, o sea, ya con el grupo de muchachos que hay aquí, los compañeros son increíbles, y bueno, decidimos pues regresar aquí.
Yeah, honestly, it was a little bit of a hard process. You know, I think San Diego was one of the first teams that showed interest. There were some other teams involved there, but, you know, I think for me, San Diego is a place that I feel comfortable in. I get along really well with my teammates, so I feel at home here in San Diego.
How much did going through the late part of last season, and in the postseason in particular, playing in that kind of environment, how much of a role did that play in your decision to come back?
Bueno, pues obviamente el final de la temporada pasada, jugando en postemporada, ¿qué rol tuvo eso en tu decisión de firmar aquí de nuevo con San Diego?
Yo creo que estoy seguro que San Diego es un equipo que puede ganar una serie mundial, y bueno, fue una de las decisiones que me trajo aquí, pues, y como te dije, la relación que tengo con los compañeros de equipo es increíble, y me siento súper bien aquí.
Yeah, you know, I firmly believe that San Diego is a team that's capable of winning the World Series, and I think that definitely played a part in my decision. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I think the relationships that I have with my teammates, with the organization, you know, super happy here, and I'm comfortable here in San Diego.
What have they communicated to you just about your role? Obviously, there are some other veterans here. There are some younger catchers. What have they communicated to you in you signing about playing time?
Bueno, que han comunicado contigo sobre tu rol en el equipo, que obviamente hay otros catchers en el roster, pero para ti, o sea, ¿qué te han dicho, qué te han comunicado contigo?
Sabes, hasta ahorita, no sé, o sea, solo estoy aquí como si fuese un novato, de verdad. Ellos me dijeron que iba a jugar bastante. No sé en realidad lo que va a pasar. Tengo que salir de sprint training como todos los días a trabajar duro.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure. I just know that I'm showing up almost like a rookie, you know, ready to go every single day, showing up ready to compete. So I'm not really sure, but I'm here to work and work hard.
At this point in your career, how important was the chance to win, and how big was that in your decision to come back here?
Bueno, para ti, en este punto de tu carrera, ¿qué importante es la oportunidad de ganar, no? O sea, para ti.
Muy importante, muy importante. Para mí, yo creo que el sueño de todo pelotero, pues, poder estar en un equipo, primero estar en un equipo ganador, y segundo poder ganar una serie mundial.
It's super important. You know, I think that's the dream of every kid growing up. You know, number one is, you know, to be in the big leagues, and number two to win, number one to win in the big leagues, and number two to win a World Series. So it's super important.
What is your relationship with Martin Maldonado, and how well do you know him?
Tu relación con Martín, ¿qué tanto lo conoces?
No, hemos jugado en contra, pero no hemos tenido una relación así como de amigos, pero lo estoy conociendo hoy, como que hemos conversado un poco y bueno, me parece tremenda persona y creo que nos puede ayudar bastante.
Yeah, we've obviously played against each other as opponents. Haven't really had a chance to know him super well, like on friend terms, but we're getting to know each other. We're talking a lot. He's a great ball player, and I'm excited to get to know him, talk to him more.
What do you make of this pitching staff on the whole and what it could accomplish this season?
Bueno, tu opinión sobre el staff, o sea, de picheos y lo que pueden cumplir este año.
Yo creo que tenemos uno de los mejores estados de picheo de la Grandes Ligas. Tenemos jóvenes, tenemos ya con experiencia. Bueno, Monstruo está lesionado, pero yo creo que la parte mental le puede ayudar bastante al equipo. Yo creo que podemos hacer grandes cosas, la verdad que sí.
I think we have one of the best staffs in baseball as far as the pitching goes. I think we have a good mix of young guys, veteran guys, even someone like Musgrove, who obviously is injured, but I think from the mental side and the mental preparation, what he can add to a staff, I think we have one of the best staffs out there in the game.
All right, that was Elias Diaz alongside interpreter Danny Sanchez earlier today inside the Padres clubhouse. Very good stuff there from Elias Diaz. Feels obviously very good about where he signed, and interesting to hear that other teams were involved. And I think a lot of us expect Elias Diaz to be this team's primary starting catcher. Now, Mike Schilt didn't go as far as to say that earlier today when he spoke with the media. But I think a lot of us expect that. And look, is that going to be a permanent situation? I don't know. I think there's opportunity. Luis Camposano, certainly it's another interesting spring for Campy, coming off what was a pretty tough year last year. But if Campy makes this team, and let's say it's Campy and Elias Diaz, your two catchers, hey, if Camposano plays really well and he's playing good defense, to me, there's always going to be the possibility, just like we saw last year, that a guy can come in and sort of take that starting job. I mean, my goodness, we saw it basically with Kyle Higashioka last year. He played himself essentially into a starting role, and then Elias Diaz eventually joined the team pretty late in the year. But at the outset, it certainly appears that Elias Diaz in all likelihood will be this team's starting catcher. So good stuff from Elias Diaz, and we continue on our spring training coverage here on 97.3 The Fan. Again, if you're just joining us at the tail end here, the big news of the night: Padres signing right-hander Nick Pivetta, reportedly, according to ESPN's Jeff Passan, to a 4-year, $55 million deal. A deal where he'll get $3 million in a signing bonus, $1 million in salary for this year. So the Padres keep the cash value very low this year. Then the numbers jump way up after that: $19 million in 2026, $14 million and $18 million in 27 and 28, respectively. It does have opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. I will say this: earlier, I think I said, I guess ideal scenario potentially for the Padres is that he pitches really well for a couple of years. You got him on the cheap for this year, and then he hits free agency. I'll tell you what, though, as he gets older, if he's making $13+ million for a couple of years, I'm not so sure he's opting out of that in years 3 and 4 of the deal. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's a real chance that Nick Pivetta is a Padre for quite some time here, which hopefully is a good thing. We're going to find out. We talked a lot about the upside that Pivetta has and brings, and why it's a good signing. It doesn't come without some level of risk, but I think overall you got to like here tonight that the Padres made a move that increases the payroll by a lot, that puts them well above the CBT, at least for now, unless there's another major move coming that would subtract payroll. We're going to find out. This becomes, if you thought it was interesting what the Padres were doing, I think after this Pivetta signing, it still remains really interesting, and maybe becomes even more interesting to see what happens heading into opening day. Again, please follow us, 97.3 The Fan SD on X, 97.3 The Fan on Instagram. You can get me at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV on X, on Instagram. We are wall-to-wall coverage, as we always are, at spring training each and every day. You won't find video content like we have anywhere else. Interviews, press conferences, anything that happens in Peoria, we are all over it. So please follow us, listen to the station, and be sure to tune in tomorrow. Ben and Woods, 6 a.m., their reaction to the Nick Pivetta signing. They'll talk to you tomorrow morning. I'll talk to you tomorrow as well. You're listening to 97.3 The Fan. Have a great night, everybody.